You wake up thinking about prosperity. You repeat affirmations in front of the mirror. You visualize your bank account growing. And when you open your eyes, the balance hasn't changed. It's not because you thought incorrectly. It's because your thought was orphaned, lacking the one element your subconscious mind recognizes as a true command. Napoleon Hill spent 20 years documenting 500 men who turned thought into fortune, and he found that 87% of them failed in their initial attempts, not because they thought incorrectly, but because they lacked a component nobody teaches you, a component that transforms desire into a neural command. And you are 60 seconds away from understanding why your mind doesn't obey you yet. Napoleon Hill didn't start by studying winners. He began with men who thought like winners, but died poor. In 1908, Andrew Carnegie gave Hill a mission: to document what separated the men who transformed thought into fortune from those who merely dreamed big. Hill spent the first 5 years interviewing well-intentioned failures, men who woke up early, visualized wealth, repeated affirmations, and never left the same job. The discovery disturbed him. The problem wasn't in the intensity of desire, it wasn't in the frequency of affirmations, it was in what happened after the thought. Hill realized that the subconscious minds of these men received the request for prosperity, but didn't receive instruction for execution. It was like giving an address without a map. When Hill finally cross-referenced the data from America's 500 wealthiest men with the data from the thousands who failed, he found the pattern. Those who succeeded didn't think differently. They converted thought into immediate physical action. Those who failed expected the universe to deliver a ready-made plan. And you're about to understand why your mind still confuses desire with command. You wake up at 5 in the morning. You repeat the affirmation, "I am prosperous, I attract wealth, I deserve abundance." You close your eyes. You visualize a bank account with 6 figures. You feel the emotion of victory. You open your eyes, and reality hasn't budged an inch. The bill is still overdue. Your salary is still the same. And that feeling of powerlessness squeezes your chest again, because you did everything they told you to do. You thought positively. You visualized. You repeated until your voice was hoarse and nothing happened. And when you look for answers, they tell you the problem is you, that you didn't believe enough, that your vibration is still low, that you need to feel more intensely. And you go back to the mirror the next day with more guilt, more pressure, more despair, disguised as hope. But the truth no one tells you is this: the problem was never the intensity of your thought, it was the absence of a destination. Napoleon Hill interviewed 500 men who transformed thought into real fortune, but before interviewing them, he spent 5 years documenting those who failed. They weren't negative people, they weren't lazy, they were dedicated optimists who visualized every day. And Hill discovered a disturbing pattern. 87% of them had thoughts of wealth. But those thoughts had nowhere to go. They were desires without coordinates, affirmations without a recipient. It was like shouting, "I want to prosper," into the void, and expecting the void to know where to deposit the money. Hill called these orphan thoughts. An orphan thought is a desire without a definite plan. It's visualization without associated physical action. It's hope without an irrevocable commitment. And your subconscious mind, the part that truly controls your reality, doesn't process hope. It processes instructions. When you say, "I am prosperous," without a concrete plan of what you will do in the next 24 hours to materialize it, your subconscious mind files that away as fantasy, not as an order. And you keep waiting for the universe to deliver what you never asked for in an executable way. The self-help industry sold you a comfortable lie. They told you that positive thinking is enough, that vibration attracts, that the secret is to feel as if you already have it. And all of that is true. But it's only the first layer of a process that has 3 more steps they forgot to give you. Because selling the illusion that just thinking is enough is more profitable than teaching the work of converting thought into a physical plan. They gave you the steering wheel, but they hid the map, the fuel, and the destination. You're driving in circles inside your own head. Thomas Edison didn't wake up visualizing the light bulb. He woke up with the filament design in his hand and went to the lab to test it. Andrew Carnegie didn't repeat, "I am a steel magnate." He drew railway routes and calculated production costs before breakfast. Henry Ford didn't meditate on prosperity. He disassembled engines until he understood every screw. Their thoughts had physical coordinates. They had a next step. They had an irrevocable decision, and that's why their subconscious mind obeyed. Say this out loud. Thought without a plan is just neural noise. And here's the part that will hurt. You didn't fail because you didn't believe enough. You failed because you never gave your subconscious a specific task to execute. Your affirmation of prosperity had no attachment. It had no executable file. It had no first concrete action that would transform desire into movement. And without movement, there is no emotional conversion. Without emotional conversion, there is no real command. Your mind simply ignored the request. Just as it ignores all thoughts that are not accompanied by a commitment you are willing to defend to the end. And while you keep repeating generic affirmations, there's someone next to you who is writing the plan. Someone who transformed "I want" into "I will do this on this day, in this way, with this resource." And that person's subconscious mind has already started working. It has already started reorganizing perception. It has already started identifying opportunities that you, stuck in orphan thought, will never see. Because they gave the subconscious what it truly needs: a physical target, a plan with a date, a decision they refused to abandon. They delivered the map, and now you need to understand what separates the thought that materializes from the thought that dies in the mind is not the intensity of faith. It is the presence of a definite plan, a plan so clear that your subconscious mind can feel its texture, a plan so concrete that you can see the first step, a plan so irrevocable that you burn all escape routes before you begin. But there is a hidden ingredient that Hill documented, and that transforms a plan into a neural command. An ingredient that 87% of those who failed never added to the equation. What you just heard isn't theory, it's a diagnosis. And there's a crucial detail Hill himself noted. You become the average of the 5 minds you spend the most time with. That's why I built Rich Mind, a free community where people from all over the world apply these principles every single day. Inside, you'll find the 17 principles. A reprogramming planner, a complete library, and a vibrant community. The link is in the pinned comment. Join today, because those who wait for the perfect moment never start. Hill called this ingredient emotional conversion. It wasn't in self-help books. It was in bankruptcy records. 87% of the men Hill interviewed had desire. They had affirmations. They had daily visualization. But when Hill asked them to describe the physical plan, silence was the answer. They had a destination in mind, but no map in hand. And the subconscious mind, it doesn't respond to destinations. It responds to routes. You can repeat, "I am rich" 1,000 times a day. Your mind will hear it as an empty promise if there isn't a concrete next step linked to that affirmation. Because the emotion that generates action doesn't come from desire. It comes from the certainty that you know what to do next. Hill discovered this in 1908, interviewing a man named Charles M. Schwab. Schwab wasn't the smartest in the room. He wasn't the most connected. But when Andrew Carnegie asked what he would do with a steel mill, Schwab didn't answer with vision. He answered with a timeline: 15 steps, 3 months, 2 suppliers, a specific bank in Pittsburgh. Carnegie hired him on the spot, because Carnegie didn't hire dreamers, he hired architects, and Schwab became the first president of the United States Steel Corporation. Not because he visualized wealth, but because he provided an address for every thought of prosperity he had. Say this out loud: desire without a roadmap is just mental noise. Now, here's the problem nobody tells you. When you visualize wealth without a definitive plan, your subconscious mind interprets that as fantasy. And fantasy doesn't generate action. Fantasy generates temporary comfort. You feel the dopamine of imagined victory, and your brain marks that as mission accomplished. That's why so many people visualize, feel the thrill of achievement, and then don't lift a finger. They confuse simulation with preparation. Hill documented this in 312 cases. Men who meditated on wealth, who wrote checks to themselves, who created vision boards, but when Hill asked, "What is your 90-day plan?" they responded with more visualization, as if repeating the desire was enough, as if the intensity of willpower replaced the clarity of the map. And the cutting truth Hill recorded is this: the subconscious mind was not designed to create plans. It was designed to execute plans. You are the programmer. It is the processor. If you provide incomplete code, it will run in an infinite loop without getting anywhere. Think of Edwin Barnes again. When he decided to work with Edison, he didn't visualize, "One day I will meet Edison." He bought a train ticket, sold what he had, showed up at the West Orange laboratory, and when Edison asked what he wanted, Barnes didn't say, "I want to be a partner." He said, "I'm here to work for free until you see me as indispensable." Edison saw the plan before he saw the man, and he hired him. That's the difference between orphan thinking and operational thinking. Orphan thinking says, "I deserve wealth." Operational thinking says, "In 30 days I will have 3 meetings scheduled with decision makers in my field. I will present this proposal. I will charge this amount." One is poetry, the other is engineering. Hill spent 2 decades trying to understand why equally intelligent, equally motivated men ended up in such different places. And the answer wasn't in willpower, it was in the specificity of the mental command. The vaguer the desire, the weaker the emotional conversion, the more detailed the plan, the stronger the internal certainty that it will happen. And certainty is the fuel that the subconscious mind recognizes as an execution order. Now pay attention, because here is the complete mechanism. When you combine burning desire with a definitive plan, something changes inside you. You stop hoping it works out. You know it will work out because you have the next 5 steps mapped out. And that emotional certainty reprograms your attention. You start seeing opportunities that were always there but you ignored, because your mind now has an active filter looking for resources that connect with your plan. Hill called this selective attention guided by definite purpose. But there's a simpler name. You finally woke up, and the problem, the big problem, is that most people never reach this stage because they confuse emotional intensity with emotional conversion. They cry watching motivational videos, they feel their chest tighten with desire, and they think that is applied faith. It's not. That's just emotion not converted into a task. Applied faith, according to Hill, is when you feel the emotion and you already know the next physical step. Without the next step, it's just mental theater. And what's worse, the more you repeat visualization without action, the more you train your mind to accept failure as normal, because subconsciously, you are teaching your brain that thinking about wealth is enough, that imagining is achievement. And then you become a prisoner of your own ritual. You wake up, you visualize, you feel, and you go to sleep. Without having moved anything in the real world, Hill saw this hundreds of times, and he recorded, "Faith without works is not faith. It is superstition disguised as spirituality. But there is still one piece missing, because even with desire and a plan, there is something that contaminates the signal. Something Hill discovered was responsible for 63% of failures. And that something does not come from within you. That's why I created the Mental Reprogramming Planner. 21 days to train your mind to convert desire into neural command. It's based on neuroscience and the principles of Napoleon Hill. You won't just visualize wealth, you'll program your mind to execute. It's the roadmap most people never get. The link is in the pinned comment of this video. It comes from the 5 people you spend the most time with. Hill called this the law of the master mind, and when he applied this metric to the 500 men he studied, he found that 100% of them, without exception, had reorganized their social circle before their financial breakthrough. It wasn't a coincidence, it was network surgery. Because your subconscious mind doesn't just process your own thoughts, it absorbs the dominant emotional frequencies around you. And if you spend 8 hours a day surrounded by people who complain about their boss, who ridicule ambition, who call your plan a delusion, your mind is receiving contradictory commands 24 hours a day. It's like trying to tune into a radio station while someone next to you interferes with the signal. You can turn the dial with all the faith in the world. The noise will cancel out the frequency, and the worst part, the truly devastating part, is that this process is invisible. You don't feel the drain happening. You leave a lunch with a pessimistic friend, thinking everything is fine, but your subconscious mind just registered 30 minutes of scarcity programming. And at night, when you try to visualize prosperity, the internal resistance has increased. You don't know why, but you feel it. Hill documented a case that proves this with surgical precision. Charles M. Schwab was 38 years old when Andrew Carnegie promoted him to president of the Carnegie Steel Company in 1900. Schwab wasn't the most experienced. He wasn't the most technical. But Carnegie saw something others didn't. Schwab refused to have lunch with the complaining engineers. He created a private circle of 5 men, all with the same goal of building the world's largest steel empire. They met every Monday at 6 o'clock in the morning. They didn't talk about problems, they talked about solutions. They didn't share doubts, they shared certainties. And Hill recorded that Schwab attributed 80% of his mental advancement to these meetings, because he knew with absolute clarity that his mind alone was no match for market resistance. But 5 minds aligned on the same frequency were an emotional conversion powerhouse. In 1901, Schwab sold the company to J.P. Morgan for $480 million, the largest deal in history up to that date. And when asked what his secret had been, Schwab didn't talk about strategy. He said, "I chose with whom to think." That's the phrase. Say it out loud. I choose with whom to think, because most people believe that thinking is a solo activity, that you just need to close your eyes and visualize. But Hill proved that thinking is a network activity. Your subconscious mind doesn't distinguish between what you think alone and what you absorb from those around you. For it, everything is input. And if the dominant input is fear, doubt, resignation, your prosperity command will be treated as spam. Now comes the part that the self-help industry hides from you. Hill discovered that 63% of people who applied the principles correctly, who had burning desire, who created definite plans, who acted with persistence, still failed. And when he investigated, he found the common denominator. All of them were trying to reprogram their minds while remaining in the same social environment, trying to build mental wealth while their surrounding circle built collective scarcity. It's like planting a seed in fertile soil, but watering it with poison every day. You can have the best plan in the world, you can have unshakable faith, but if you go home and hear that your dream is unrealistic, if you have lunch with people who have already given up, If you spend the weekend with those who celebrate mediocrity, your subconscious mind will register that as dominant truth. And the next time you try to give a prosperity command, it will respond. This is not the group's pattern, because your mind is tribal. It was programmed to adapt to the tribe's consensus. And if the tribe believes that wealth is luck, that success is for others, that trying is too risky, you will feel increasing internal resistance every time you try to deviate from that pattern. It's not a lack of faith, it's a conflict of frequency. Hill called this invisible sabotage by social osmosis. And the solution is not motivation. The solution is reorganization. You need to audit the 5 people you spend the most time with and ask a brutal question. Are these people building the future I want or defending the present I need to abandon? If the answer makes you uncomfortable, you already know what you need to do, but there's an even bigger problem. Because even after reorganizing their circle, even after surrounding themselves with aligned minds, most still fail. And the reason is something Hill only discovered in his 17th year of research. Something that was happening inside the minds of these well-intentioned people themselves. Have you ever really stopped to think how many people in your life right now truly celebrate your ambition? And how many just pretend to support you while secretly waiting for you to fail? Let me know in the comments. Do you have at least 3 people around you who genuinely believe in what you're building? Because that answer will tell you whether you're surrounded by allies or by invisible anchors. Hill realized people failed not because they absorbed negativity from others. They failed because they never built mental armor. And without that armor, every external opinion entered their minds as if it were absolute truth. Hill called this silent contamination. When you lack a defined filter for what enters your head, anything that arrives with strong emotion settles in as a neural command. And most people spend their entire lives obeying commands that other minds programmed into them without permission. Henry Ford had a rule. He didn't discuss his plans with anyone outside his mastermind circle. Not because he was arrogant, but because he knew that a dubious opinion, repeated 3 times by the brain, transforms into an ingrained belief. Ford documented this in 1923 during the construction of the moving assembly line. Engineers within his own company said it was impossible. Suppliers said it was too expensive. Investors said the market wasn't ready. And Ford stopped talking about the project with anyone who wasn't executing it alongside him. Because he understood a principle that neuroscience only validated a century later. Your mind doesn't distinguish between an external opinion and your own thought when both arrive with the same emotional intensity. Do you know what that means in practice? It means that when you share a dream with someone who doesn't believe, and that person looks at you with that expression of doubt, your brain registers that doubt as your own. And the next time you try to act, the voice that paralyzes you isn't that person's voice. It's your own voice repeating the doubt you authorized to enter. Hill discovered that 83% of people who give up on a goal do so not because they failed in execution. They do it because someone planted the doubt, and they watered that doubt every day with their own mental energy. Say this out loud. I'm not obligated to process every opinion that comes my way. Now comes the painful part. Silent contamination doesn't just happen with strangers. It happens with the people you love, with the family that raised you, with childhood friends, with the partner who sleeps beside you, because these people have direct emotional access to your subconscious. And when they say, with good intentions, phrases like, "Isn't that too risky? You've tried this before and it didn't work. I just don't want you to get hurt." They are programming fear disguised as protection, and your brain obeys. Hill interviewed a man named William R. Thompson in 1931. Thompson was 29 years old and was building a transportation company in Detroit. He had the plan, he had the initial capital, he even had the first contract signed. But he made a mistake that Hill recorded as fatal. He told his father the details of the business during a Sunday dinner. The father, an honest, hard-working man who had spent 40 years in the same job, looked at his son and said with all sincerity, "Son, 80% of businesses fail. You have a good job now. Don't throw that away." Thompson left that dinner with a knot in his stomach. Not because his father was wrong, but because that phrase entered him like a prophecy. And 3 weeks later, Thompson gave up. He returned the capital to the investors. He tore up the contracts. He went back to his safe job. 10 years later, in a second interview with Hill, Thompson confessed, "I wasn't afraid to fail. I was afraid of proving my father right." This is silent contamination operating at the deepest level, and the worst part, you don't realize when it's happening. Because the person who contaminates isn't shouting. They are loving you the way they know how. They are protecting you from the pain they would feel if you failed. But the price of that protection is the death of your plan before it even takes its first breath. Hill wrote a sentence that cuts you in half. The biggest barrier between you and your fortune is not a lack of money. It is the well-intentioned opinion of those who have never tried. So the question you need to answer now isn't who supports me. The question is, who has emotional authorization to program my mind, and what are those people programming into it every day? Because if you don't consciously choose who has access to your subconscious, other people will choose for you. And when you wake up 5 years from now, having accomplished nothing, you'll swear it was a lack of courage. But it wasn't. It was a lack of armor. And there's a final stage of this contamination that Hill documented, but almost no one talks about. A stage where you become the contaminator yourself, where you start sabotaging your plans alone without needing anyone's opinion. Hill called this programmed self-sabotage, and that's when things get truly dangerous. Programmed self-sabotage doesn't need anyone else to operate. Once installed, it runs on its own. You don't even notice it happening. You're about to take that life-changing step, and suddenly you feel that familiar tightening in your chest. That voice that whispers, "Who do you think you are to even try this?" Hill discovered that the men he interviewed had carried this voice for years, decades in some cases. It wasn't their own. It belonged to someone who planted that seed of doubt when they were 9, 13, or 17 years old. And now, at 40 years of age, they were still obeying the command. The problem is, you don't even realize you're obeying it. You think it's prudence. You think it's realism. But Hill documented the exact mechanism that transforms prudence into paralysis, and very few people know about it. There's a test he created, a 3-question test that reveals whether you're programmed to sabotage or programmed to build. And when you answer those 3 questions, you'll understand why some people never get anywhere, even when they do everything right. But that's a story for next time. Your thoughts don't create your wealth. Your thoughts, charged with emotion, tied to a specific plan, and shielded from external interference, create your wealth. That's the difference between those who visualize and those who achieve, between those who wish and those who build, between those who affirm and those who execute. Most people spend their entire lives treating their mind as if it were a radio, where you just need to tune into the right frequency. They repeat affirmations as if they were magic mantras. They visualize success as if it were a mental movie that through osmosis will materialize in their bank account. And when nothing happens, they believe the problem lies in the intensity of the thought, in the purity of the intention, in the frequency of repetition. But that was never the problem. The problem has always been the absence of translation. Thought without emotion is a word without a voice. Emotion without a plan is a scream without direction. A plan without execution is a map without a journey. And execution contaminated by others' doubt is an engine with the handbrake on. The subconscious mind is not an oracle that responds to vague requests. It is an executor that only accepts complete orders, orders with a date, with a time, with a physical first step, with a concrete second move, with a necessary third adjustment. When you deliver a thought, without these coordinates, your mind doesn't reject it. It simply files it away as irrelevant information, as background noise. Like a child's wish to be an astronaut who never studied physics, and time passes and you keep visualizing, and reality remains indifferent because you never gave your mind what it needed to obey. And there's more. Even when you finally deliver the complete plan, even when the emotion is present, even when the first step is laid out, there's still the external saboteur, the one who doesn't need to openly criticize you, the one who merely raises an eyebrow when you talk about your project, the one who subtly laughs when you mention the amount you intend to achieve, the one who says they love you but doesn't believe you're capable. And when that doubt enters, it doesn't need an argument. It settles in like a silent virus. It corrupts the command. It dilutes certainty. It turns faith into hope. And hope doesn't move mountains. Hope just waits for the mountain to move on its own. Today, at this very moment, millions of people are repeating affirmations in front of the mirror, visualizing the car, the house, the trip, the business. But how many of those people have written the plan? How many have defined the physical first step? How many have protected that plan from those who don't believe? How many are willing to cut off access to those who contaminate the command? Because the truth no one wants to hear is this: controlling your thoughts is not an isolated spiritual practice. It is an act of war. War against inertia, war against doubt, war against the comfort of dreaming without executing, war against the voices that love you but don't believe in you, war against the version of yourself that prefers fantasy to discipline. And only those who understand that thought without a plan is mental entertainment win this war. That emotion without action is internal theater. That desire without decision is just an echo that never leaves your own head. So I ask you now, without rhetoric, without empty motivation, when was the last time you transformed a thought of wealth into 3 executable physical actions within the next 72 hours? When was the last time you wrote the plan, set the date, shielded the command from those who don't believe, and executed without negotiating with your own resistance? Because if the answer is never, you already know why your bank account still doesn't reflect what you visualize every day. It's not a lack of positive thinking, it's a lack of translation. And translation requires more than intention. It requires architecture. It requires the courage to cut off those who contaminate. It requires the discipline to act before you're ready. Your thoughts create your wealth, but only when you stop treating them as desires and start treating them as non-negotiable orders.